Think about your town or school's football team. Do they win? If so, how much? Well, I bet you they haven't won as much as the teams on this list, because today we are going to be diving into the best dynasties in Arkansas high school football by each class. Arkansas high school football has been documenting state champions since 1905, and it's the earliest I could find, so that's where we're going to go off of. All of the schools, no matter what size, played against each other, and they were all in one giant class. But in 1968, the Arkansas Activities Association started classes based on school enrollment to make playoffs and state championships. So we're going to dive into the first class. Starting off with 8-man. This one is difficult to do considering that the AAA revived the class in 2021. Quick history lesson. That marked the fourth time for the revival of 8-man football, with the previous 3 seasons before this being played as a club sport. Decatur was the first school that started pushing for the revival of 8-man football because their final 2 games of the 2017 season they had to forfeit due to having few players. The last time 8-man football was played in Arkansas under the AAA was in 1964, and only by the 1B conference, which consisted of just schools in Northwest Arkansas. Gravette, Prairie Grove, Gentry, Pea Ridge, Lincoln, West Fork, Mountainburg, Greenland, and Decatur were the schools that played. But anyways, I will be going off of the 8-man class that was sanctioned in 2021, so that team's going to be the Rector Cougars. Rector only has 1 state football championship, but has an appearance in both 8-man football championships in 2022 and 2023. They went to the 2022 8-man title and jumped out to a 14-0 lead, but lost the lead and fell to Izard County 36-26. In 2023, they got back to Little Rock with an undefeated record, this time facing off against the Spring Hill Bears. I watched this game personally, live on TV, and it was one of the best games out of all the championships. Rector would win the game 22-16 in overtime, capturing the first state title in school history. I expect this team to go deep in the playoffs next season and keep dominating the 8-man class. The Class 2A. My pick is the Junction City Dragons. Although the program has been a roller coaster recently, this year they had a strong season, finishing 9-4 and making it to the 3rd round of the playoffs before being defeated by Glen Rose. The history can back up this dynasty, as they have 7 state championships, most recently in 2018 when they beat undefeated Hazen 36-22. The Dragons won back-to-back state championships, winning in 2008 and 2009, and then they three-peated, winning in 2012, 13, and 14. All these titles came in the Class 2A, and 6 of them came under legendary head coach David Carpenter. An honorable mention for the Class 2A is the Bigelow Panthers, the most recent state champions that have a 34-4 record since 2021. Maybe they could pass Junction City in the next decade. Class 3A is obvious championship-wise, but this team has been struggling in the recent years. But it is the Barton Bears. Barton has won 8 state championships, the most recent one coming in 1997. They have the 8th most state championships in Arkansas high school history. The Bears dynasty lasted throughout the late 90s, with a 4-peat coming from 86, 87, 88, and 89. And they went back-to-back in 1993 and 1994. All this success was brought to Barton by Frank McKellen. McKellen won 367 games in his career that began in his home state of Mississippi at Vaden High School. He was just there 2 years before taking over at his alma mater for a year, and then in 1970, he began his career at Barton, and the rest is history. Barton won 346 games under Coach McKellen in 35 years. Beginning in 1986, Barton won a state record 63 straight games that included the 4-peat of state championships. It also was the 4th best win streak in the nation's high school history at the time. Barton had the win streak snapped in the Class A state championship by Risen in 1990. Unfortunately, Coach McKellen died in 2020 at the age of 79. Something cool I found is that there's a book on Amazon about this dynasty called The Team No One Wanted to Play. It was written by former head coach of the Bears, P.K. Burkett. The Class 4A. There are 2 teams that have 7 state championships, the Stuttgart Ricebirds and the Blytheville Chickasaws. But there can only be one best dynasty in this class, and I'm going to go with the Stuttgart Ricebirds. With, as I said, 7 state titles most recently in 2012, the Rice Birds are always competitive and a hard-nosed team every year. This past season was not one to remember, but one to build off of. They finished 3rd in the conference and got smacked by 45 points to grab it in the first round of the playoffs. And I actually got to play in this game. There's me kicking the ball. The Birds won their first state championship in 1949, and their other titles are a bit spread out. Stuttgart has a state championship in every decade since the 40s, except for the 60s and the 90s. They were a single point away from a title in 2001, but lucky for them, they went to the title the very next year in 2002. The 2012 team was their most recent title, and it was a special team. The Birds went 13-1 with their only loss to Heber Springs. The Rice Birds' closest game in the playoffs was their 28-7 win versus the Ozark Hillbillies in the title. Yes, for you non-Arkansans, there is a school called the Hillbillies here. Just because it's been 12 years since a championship, don't sleep on these guys. They're always capable of winning. Alright, Class 5A. Now think of a dominant high school in any sport, and look up how many state championships they have. I bet you they either have nowhere near or just around the amount of this school. Pine Bluff Zebras have the 2nd most state championships in Arkansas history, with 23 of them. The first one came in 1916, and Arkansas football champions are documented back to 1905. Pine Bluff High opened in 1868 and is one of Arkansas's oldest high schools. Now, I am not going to name every single year or repeat Pine Bluff has had, but I'll go ahead and put them on the screen right there so you can pause the video and look at the Zebra state titles. The city of Pine Bluff just has produced titles with the Zebras. Time for another history lesson. Dalloway High School opened in 1957, and the Cardinals didn't win their first state championship until 1988. And then that started the three-peat from 88 to 90, and then back-to-back titles in 91 and 92. Flash forward to May 2023, and Dalloway High School is having their final graduation as they merge with Pine Bluff High School. I may make a video in the future diving deeper into what happened to Dalloway and the rise and fall of their football team, but the 2023 season was the first season for the Zebras merged with the Dalloway players. The Zebras had an acceptable season, finishing with a 10-3 record and defeating Nettleton in the first round and Lakeside in the second round. Then they met in the semifinals, in my opinion, the second best 6A dynasty, Shiloh Christian. Now, I know, how come 6A? Isn't Pine Bluff a 5A school? Well, yes, and it's a little complicated. In 2022, the AAA decided that there will be a point system for private schools called the competitive equality factor. I'll put it in simple terms. A private school gets points depending on how well they do. Their points are 4 for a state championship, 3 for a runner-up, 2 for a playoff win, and 1 for a winning conference record. Once a team earns X amount of points, they are bumped up to the next class. So back to Pine Bluff. They faced off the Saints with a trip to Little Rock on the line. The Zebras were dominant at first, taking a 35-19 lead at halftime. Then Shiloh came storming back and then scored in the third quarter as time expired to take the lead. Shiloh would end up winning the game 49-41, ending a storybook season for Pine Bluff. But you can ask Shiloh how the finals. Lucky enough for the Zebras, Shiloh is leaving for 6A. Unlucky enough for the Zebras, they still have to deal with Parkview. But maybe they could pull off the greatest upset humanity has ever seen. Class 6A is a no-brainer. It's the Greenwood Bulldogs. They have 11 state championships, and they have all been won in the 21st century, the most recent one coming in last season, which was 2023. This team has a quarterback named Kane Archer, who has been featured on Quarterback Plug. Archer is only a sophomore but has offers from these schools on your screen. The Bulldogs finished with an undefeated season this year, and I don't think anyone will beat them. Shiloh may give them a fight, but we're going to see. Greenwood has three-peated as state champions 2 separate times. 05, 06, and 07 was the first one, and 10, 11, and 12 was the second. I wish I could talk more about this team, but for the sake of this time, let's look at the last and most dominant dynasty in Arkansas high school football history. Little Rock Central High School is the most famous high school in Arkansas and possibly one of the most famous in the United States, made most recognizable by the Little Rock Nine, which were the first ever African-American students to attend an all-white high school. But no one ever talks about the football team and an insane amount of winning that they've done. They have the most state titles in Arkansas history and the second most out of any high school team in the nation. They have 32 state championships. Their first one was in 1907 and the most recent one coming in 2004. There was a period in this program's history where they won 6 straight state championships. The Tigers are definitely not what they used to be after the 2023 season. Central has recorded 29 straight losses, with their last win coming against Fayetteville on November 13th, 2020. I do not know what's next for the Tigers. This team is really down deep in the hole, and it's honestly sad to see how bad this team has gotten. It was crazy to see a team go from a dominant 32 state championships to 29 straight losses. I'm a guy in a class, and that was the best Dynasties in Arkansas by class.